Hello, everybody. This is a slightly impromptu thing. I'm just going to see how this pans out for me. So basically, I have before me a rather large pile of single issue, mainly American comics, such as this one. And the autofocus would kick in. There we go. I'm going to try and I'm just going to sort of have a quick run through these, see what I've got, and just try and get this a little bit sorted out here. Should just about do it. The joys of having wired up stuff. Let me just do that with it. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit neater. So, got some quite modern, I think, Transformers. I've only just picked these up recently. These are IDWs, so I'm going to try and keep all these together. So we've got a Spotlight on RC. We've got a Spotlight on Cyclonus. That lighting is now not as nice as it was before. Okay. A little bit of shininess because, of course, they're nicely bagged up. Not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately. Okay. So, as you can see, distinct Transformers filters at the moment. More IDW stuff. 20th anniversary. A bit of Skyfire and Bumblebee and Cliffjumper going on there. Old school, of course. Possibly, I can't remember if it was called Skyfire or Jetfire, but I've yet to look into these. I think that's Starscream God Mode there. And Starscream God Mode trying to hand. Maybe it's not. No, that's the Starscream's there. So, okay. Not so sure about that being Starscream now. Bit of Prime. Bit of Bumblebee with an unusually large gun. Is that Bruticus's head he's pointing that gun at? Or is it Onslaught, I wonder? I tend to get them muddled up. So I think that's... No. More Transformers. That is... No, Megatron Origin. That's right. So that was when he was a gladiator. That's such a massive retcon from... Well, I say it's a retcon. When I was reading the Transformers comics in the 80s, there was no mention of him being a gladiator, but I can only assume that they sort of wrote that into his story later on at some point. And there we've got Galvatron lording it over, and that's issue 0. So not quite sure what's going on there. And that says it's Generation 1, which is... So those are Generation 1 as well. Okay. So that's a little, not so little Transformers bundle there. So let's stick those to one side, try and keep them in some sort of order. You'll have to have another look at those in due course and see what's what with those in terms of where I'm going to put those. We've got Azrael as Batman there. Although it also features Batman. Again, I haven't looked at that issue. This is a new pickup. As is Mask Revolution. I wonder who actually produces this. This is IDW as well. So I'll put that on my IDW pile and form a DC pile. I think what else I can do with this light so it won't shine so much. But a lot of these won't be so bagged up, mind you. So I'm just going to work through what I've got in these bags now. See what I've actually got. It may not even be entirely comics. I've got a Mouse Guard comic there for no apparent reason. That looks like it's a free comic book day one. So yeah, talking mice and animals, and I probably haven't read that one. That definitely goes on some sort of random setting in terms of piles, I think. This is not a comic, but it's that sort of flavour of thing. And I got this, of course, because it's got a Starfleet article in it. I can't remember if I helped contribute to that one, if I just knew about it and got it on that basis. I think I might have spoken to somebody about that one. But that's cool. It's nice to see Starfleet on the front cover. Let's have a quick flick, see if I can find the article. Yeah, there we go. And there's some of See some of it there. There's Kapow poster in the middle of it. Oh, and there's the other half of the Starfleet poster. So there must be a Starfleet poster bit actually built into it on the reverse side, but I've not taken it out. Batman. Sun in a bottle. Some old comic-y bits in there as well. Oh, Starfleet's towards the back, actually, from the looks of it. I'm very even-handed about this, am I? Because I'm kind of concentrating on the bits that I know about. Oh, there we go. There's a little bit there. Oh, yeah, there we go. Thanks to Garrett Kagan, Lisa Ross, Mark Rawson, and Andrew Thomas for their help with this feature. So, yes, I definitely helped with this feature, apparently. There you go. Excellent. Good stuff. Cool. Yeah, nice spread, that. Marvellous. I might keep that one out to have a look at later, I think, because that I should remind myself of. What else have I got here? Yeah, these aren't comics. I don't know. Got Blocks magazine. It's focuses on Lego. TV years for some reason. I think it was a science fiction issue. No idea why I picked that up. Don't know. Space 1999 maybe. Random 2000 AD issue. I'm not entirely sure why I've got that either. Somebody might have got that from me actually when I was in the hospital once. It could be that issue. Terminator from Empire there. Well, I know why I got that. That's called research. when you're thinking about starting to collect stuff from the 80s, that's called research. So that I think is why I've got that. What have I actually got from that page on the front there? Probably very little, ironically. Yeah, very, very little actually. Oh well. It's time yet. Okay. So that's a fairly random mix of A4 size stuff, which doesn't really fit what I was aiming to find. So these I got quite recently. This is by JMS of Babylon 5 fame, of course. Rising Stars. Now, I'd heard of him doing this, but I didn't know anything about it. It seems to be various people who got powers at a particular point that got sort of activated, and then someone's going around killing them off, basically. So I literally only have that issue because that was all that happened to be in the local store that I went to at the time. So that's literally as much as I have of that. Ditto for Transformers Last Bot Standing. And this is, I guess, is towards the end of IDW's run on Transformers as well. And I think there's probably a collected edition of this now, but I haven't got it yet. So that's IDW. So that's more IDW Transformers. Oh, I told a lie, apparently. I also had issue 3 of Last Bot Standing. So I have issues 1 and 3, which isn't massively helpful. That's also cover variant A, apparently. Okay. Top Cow Image. Oh, so it's an Image one. Okay. A separate pile for Image comics then. Okay, fair enough. What else have we got? Okay, big pile here, which I have no recollection of whatsoever. So let's start digging into this. Let's see what we've got. So, no idea why I've got this. This is a free comic book day thing again. I don't know. Astro Boy the movie, official movie adaptation, apparently, number 3. IDW again. I don't know. It might be because my son watched the movie and he liked the idea of having that. It might be because of that. So yeah, free, definitely a free. This could well be a free comic book day kind of pile, I suspect. I'll pop that down there. Yep, more free comic book day. Now this is quite an old one. So I think I've had this for a while. It's a Dark Horse comic, but I think it was created to to promote the new inclusion of sort of fighters, if I remember rightly, in EVE, the online game. I think it was that. So I would have picked it up on the basis of the EVE connection, although I'm not active in the EVE universe at all now. It has to be said. I mean, my character's probably sat in a station somewhere cooling his heels because I really don't play it anymore. I think this I would have picked up because Warren Ellis was featured in the writing, but again, this would have been a while ago. And I can't recall. I think I actually picked this one up in America. So it would have been quite a few years back now that I picked it up. Yeah, that looks about right. 2015 is mentioned in an advert there. So yeah, I might have another look at that and see what that one was about. Surprisingly dark for a Marvel issue, actually. What time are we on now? Okay, that's cool. Cable Messiah War Cable X. Don't know why I got that. Possibly just because it had Wolverine on the cover. That might have been all the excuses I needed. It's entirely possible. It's another Marvel. These I definitely remember. These I got from a comic shop in New York back in the day. I was just falling out of that. Oh, I think I know what this is. This is quite cool. Yeah, I'll show you. This is quite a cool size. We've got New Avengers by Marvel there. I can't recall if I've ever read that. Oh, is this the one when? Yeah, I think that was when there was a big disruptive event happening, as there often is, of course, in the Marvel universe. Siege. Now, this just dropped out from in amongst those comics, and this is perhaps worth pausing on for a moment. This I think I picked up in the midst of a DVD set. I can't remember any other way I would have come across it, and it's called Transformers: The Beast Within, as you can probably see there. But what's really unusual about this is that it's this tiny format. I mean, if I should compare and contrast, that's the standardized American comic. You can see how small this is. And this actually deals with this sort of situation where basically the Autobots are getting pummeled. And unusually, and Megatron's basically saying, take them all out, no survivors. But unfortunately, he hasn't counted on the fact that Grimlock and the Dinobots have a rather surprising new ability, which we've never ever seen before, to my knowledge. And basically, they just wig out, and Grimlock starts pulling all the Dinobots together onto him as a combiner force, which we've never ever seen before. And you get the distinct impression that they are not actually supposed to be doing this, because Grimlock describes it as being a risky thing for the team to do, and Optimus is telling him not to do it, basically. But as a result, we get this sort of nightmarish monster Dinobot creation, and Predaking goes up against it, and so the Predacons combine to try and combat it. And basically, the combined form of Dinobots is having none of it, and finishes Predaking in 2 seconds flat. Then Devastator and Menasor join the attack. The Seekers attack and get clobbered, and it just does not end well for the Decepticons off the back of it. Now, I think that I have since seen a sort of a big amalgam toy of this, where the Dinobots haven't. Oh, hi, Mark. Where the Dinobots have indeed sort of formed this Gestalt being, and it has sort of been formed into. I don't know if it's an official toy, or if it's a sort of an independently made toy, but it was presumably it was off the back of that. I don't know. I don't actually know the history of it. I just need to move something out of the way so I can actually see the chat. Excuse me a second. Something better with these next time. Okay, let's carry on. Hope you can still see that. So we've got another Got Rage of the Dinobots here from IDW. Probably again just gratuitously bought sheerly for the cover, if nothing else, because that's quite a. I think I'm not even sure what version of Grimlock that is, because it's distinctly different to his G1 version. But if it's on Cybertron, it would make sense for him to look like a Dinobot, like like a dinosaur, because otherwise he wouldn't have that alternative form. So I'm not quite sure where that fits in the grand scheme of things. No, that's a curious one. That one. Again, one I might have to have a look at. Now this was interesting for me because apparently, and I wanted to do a separate video on this at some point, but I was surprised to see Midnighter in a DC comic, because Midnighter, to my mind, was part of the Authorities team, and the Authority were not in the DC universe. But I understand that the sort of Stormwatch crew and everyone who was produced by that imprint was then actually bought by DC. So that's why we have Midnighter teaming with Dick Grayson. But I think at the time I didn't know that. So this, I was just sort of wondering why he had his own separate comic, and B, why it was a DC comic. So Midnighter, if you're not familiar with his character, and you might well be if you're more into comics recently than I am, Midnighter has the ability to predict his opponent's move and therefore counter it. But there is an interesting flaw with that, because it means that if someone doesn't attack him, he can't actually attack them effectively because he's got nothing to react to. He's also got sort of super healing and all that sort of good stuff. But broadly speaking, he's a sort of martial artist, so he's quite similar to Batman in that sense. But he does have specific upgrades that are sort of hardwired into him, so that's quite cool. Right, so there's my DC pile. Put that out of there. Something different. Mara. This is an Image comic. Hello, come on, autofocus. There we go. Not a character I was familiar with, and I think she was introduced in this comic, so it's kind of a standalone sort of comic. It's not DC or Marvel, so it's just a sort of a new character for this imprint. So that was she's Image. And do I have any other images at the moment? No. I'm now making more mess around me than I have in my pile in the first place. Again, one I must have, Free Comic Book Day, one that I picked up for my son, so I can rich apparently. So he'll drop that on the floor there. The Tick. I've never really got into the Tick. I know of him. And I think he's got his own show on Amazon as well, actually. But I've never really read into him hugely, so I can tell you very little about him, unfortunately, other than I haven't a comic of his. Ditto for this next one. This is an IDW Free Comic Book Day one again. And again, I don't know who Lock and Key are particularly, but haven't they had a TV show as well? Oh, hello. Hi, Gareth. You're right. All right, so that was Lock and Key. So the IDW, put them in the Transformers pile. And, oh yes. Now, see, Secret Wars for me is from the 80s, when the Beyonder was in it. But this, I assume, is a slightly different version of Secret Wars. I can't remember if I've actually read this. Maybe this was part of my New York haul and I just never got around to reading it. This is... That's the Ultimates version of Iron Man, isn't it? So it must be a slightly sort of different version of the Marvel universe, I think, as opposed to the mainstream one somewhat. Okay, that's cool. Have a look at that. Marvel. I have got a surprising number of Transformers comics here. And this I would have got because it's got Shockwave on the front cover, because Shockwave's cool. And I think it does sort of link into another comic that I did have. I think maybe this explosion bit here was something I kind of recognized. and it's Regeneration 1. So we've got the Dinobots in here again. And I think at one point Shockwave actually experimented on the Dinobots, so they're not his number one fans. Okay, interesting. So again, lots and lots of IDW Transformers, but very sort of bitty. Serenity, Leaves on the Wind. Can't resist getting the odd Firefly comic when I see it. I've also got the odd collected edition of it as well, but that's a standalone. Oh, that's a number one. I do have a penchant for trying to get number ones. I think I read it actually. I think it deals with what happened after the Serenity film, and how things changed for the crew after that. And that's Dark Horse. Now, someone can explain to me why IDW managed to pick up a 2000 AD imprint. So this is Rogue. That's a Rogue Trooper. I used to get quality comics at this sort of scale. Yes, you should be seeing me tomorrow, Cosmic. That's definitely a good chance of that. Okay, so that's Rogue Trooper. Strangely in the IDW pile. Oh, why? I don't know why I picked these up. Transformers Armada. It's another cartoon, and the characters all look different, but they've got similar names to the normal Transformers. Don't know why I picked those up. No idea whatsoever. And if someone can tell me why I've got two of these, that would be appreciated. I can only assume I accidentally picked up two and didn't notice when I was paying for everything. Anyway, okay. Free comic book day. Some sort of robo dinosaur and his child psychic, or maybe the dinosaur is the psychic of the child. Don't want to make assumptions. Assumptions are bad. Okay, this one I had to pick up just because, like, what? Transformers and Ghostbusters. So it's kind of different, to say the least. I think that's the only one I got, but I had to pick it up because it's number one. And we have that is fascinating, Gareth. Thank you for that that tidbit of information. Super Dinosaur is written by the same writer as Walking Dead. Okay, good. I got nothing else. I remember the Super Dinosaur thing being sort of quite entertaining, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. But when you walk into a comic store and it's free comic book day, you kind of feel obliged to scoop up everything, don't you? Well, I did anyway. So I did. Okay, Marvel Comics 1001. Oh, I remember why I got this. Sorry, it helps if I show you what I'm looking at, doesn't it? Marvel Comics 1001. This had lots of little snippets of characters who don't get seen very often, if I remember rightly. So it's like these 2-page stories, just sort of showing sort of old school versions of people. And if I'm right, I think that Death's Head turns up in one of these. If I'm right, am I just imagining that? No, there he is. I was right. There we go. Destroy all the robots. So there's the modern, or the then modern day Death's Head. That's right. I think I heard about it because I saw him being mentioned. Is that Jeff Senior on the art? And he's never called him a bounty hunter. He's a freelance peacekeeping agent. Oh no, it wasn't Jeff Senior. Writer Simon Burton, obviously. Artist Nick Roche. That's right. I've just got a new graphic novel with him in, actually, which I haven't sat down to read yet. That's cool. Like a bit of Death's Head, yes. Oh, that's interesting. Apparently, I felt I needed to get another cover of the Transformers Ghostbusters hookup. I believe that's a transformed version of Ecto-1. I think, because I don't think I recognise that guy, but I think Ecto-1 actually transforms at some point. So there you go. They were both issue 1s, but I just have that's just another variant of the cover. Now this is Jeff Senior. This is Simon Furman and Jeff Senior reuniting in a recent comic called To the Death. Quite an interesting imprint, actually, because it's quite hard cover to it. It's almost like a sort of mini graphic novel in a sense. But I remember picking up comics that were formatted like this way back in the day. Don't know if anyone remembers The New Statesman, but I loved that. Ectotron, even. Yeah, maybe. Is that the official name of it? Ectotron. I'll take your word for it. And that was issue number 2. Now here, funnily enough, is the FBF production. So that's completely different print again. I'm not sure, about 7 piles of different publishers now. So this is that's the Death's Head comic that was the new one. Ironically, this logo is exactly the same as they were in the, I want to say late 80s, probably. Yeah, probably late 80s. That's exactly the same as Death's Head's comic used to look like when it was released years back. And I've got another one of it here, actually. So actually, I've got 2 issues. No, I've got 3. I've got 3 issues of it, and I've bought a graphic novel of it. I've bought the graphic novel just to get the last issue, and I've got 2 variants of the first issue there. I'm a very dedicated Death's Head fan. You've got to hand it to me, haven't you, really? Yes, it's new model, yes. So, I mean, it's proper throwback, that. But, yeah, I've no idea why maybe I didn't realise I'd gotten quite so many issues. Okay. Well, I'm a completist anyway, so in fact the graphic novel wasn't very expensive at all, so I'm not going to be bitter about that. Now then, this is a big pile. I'm going to have to take these out bit by bit, I think. So let's have a look at this first. Oh, right. Okay, so we've got rather interestingly another To the Death issue there, with people getting the stuffing knocked out of them on a fairly regular basis. Oh, good lord! So I have got more of these. I don't think I've read half of these. I'm gonna have a serious reading session at some point. So that's issue 2. That's issue 4. How much would you like to bet I don't have issue 3? Yep, and that's issue 5. So I'm missing issue 3. So Gareth, your mission when you're next in the shop is to find me issue 3 of Transformers Ghostbusters. Thank you. And I've got another random IDW Judge Dredd issue there as well. So let's sort those out. Okay, marvelous. And another To the Death. I wonder if that means I've actually got a complete selection of those as well. I'm not quite sure. I had a feeling I was missing one of them. But I've got 3 and 4. But I think I've got 2 1s or something there. Anyway. No, I may have a more complete run of that as well than I thought. But that's kind of why I'm doing this exercise, though, because I've completely lost track of what I have and haven't got. So this is Death's Head 2. So this is what happened when this chap, who is called Death's Head 2, tried to absorb the original Death's Head by clobbering him. And as a result, he ended up being quite similar to the original Death's Head, but he did have more personalities in him as well. But there were times when all the other personalities got knocked out and it was just Death's Head left, effectively. But he had a slightly different. He wasn't as robot-y as the original Death's Head. He was more sort of bioorganic. So he's a slightly, somewhat different character. He had quite a few crossovers going on as well. I think he was more of a US character. The original Death's Head was very much a UK-focused character, and he had his own Marvel UK run. But then I think Death's Head 2 became more mainstream Marvel, which is probably why he had more crossovers. But the original Death's Head did have crossovers as well, because he met She-Hulk. He also met Doctor Who. Right, let's have a look. What else have we got? Oh, good lord. I must have been getting these thinking that they'd be worth holding on to. So I've got Transformers Armada again, number 1. Yeah, Yeah, I've got it in the collected issues, Gareth. I've got sort of Death's Head Volume 1, Death's Head Volume 2. I've got Revolutionary War, Dragon's Claws as well, of course, because I love them. Sadly, I had the original separate issues. If I'd hung on to them longer, they probably would be worth a bit more now, but I didn't. So I've got Transformers: The War Within. I'm not sure I've got many of these, but I think I probably wanted to have a look at that. These are pretty random. I think I got these in Forbidden Planet in Newcastle. I don't know why I remember that, but these are quite old. US War Machine. So obviously that's a sort of an Iron Man offshoot, but that was supposed to be like an older version of it. So I think it's supposed to be a bit darker than normal Iron Man stuff. But speak of Iron Man, and he shall appear. Not entirely sure what's going on there. Is he having a fight with himself or something? I don't know. But I think we're definitely going down sort of older comics now. So that's Menasor taking shots and looking like he doesn't give two hoots about it. I do love the IDW graphics. I mean, it's just such a clean style of illustration. You've got to love it. And that's number 5 of that run. And number 4 of that run. I've just picked up a Sideswipe. Got a slightly battered G1 Sideswipe. Look. Oh, look, guest starring. Hooray, there he is. See, it's not bad, is it? It's they did him pretty close to his original. And of course, that Sunstreaker, who apparently was almost called Sideswipes, they almost had the opposite names. Oh, put him back to his high level. You're trying to get him hooked on Warhammer, aren't you? You see, I could never have done with the painting with that. I admired them as a concept, but I would never have managed to do the painting. Transformers 3. So I think it's got nearly a full run. I wonder if I've actually got a full run. Transformers 2. Transformers 1 possibly with some sort of variant cover that means I haven't opened it. Ouch. We've got some right smack talk going on here, you two. Steady on. The New Avengers Director's Cut. I've got nothing on that one. Oh, no way. Now, you see, this, kids, is why you should check your collection before you go to a comic store. Because about 20 minutes ago, I found this issue that I just picked up again. Oh, the irony. The irony. So I now have a spare. Excellent. At least I've only got one spare. That's not too bad, duplication wise. Some sort of Iron Man Hulk team up. Ooh. Dark Horse Aliens. I can never resist Dark Horse Aliens. Is this one issue or more than one? More than one. See, part of the reason for doing this is it gives me a record of what I've actually got that I can refer to. Aliens Apocalypse, The Destroying Angels. Aliens Apocalypse, The Destroying Angels. Another issue of 3 of 4 and 4 of 4. That's really helpful. I wonder if that was a New York pickup. I don't know, Destroying Angels 1 and 2. So I do have the full. I have the full series of that. Whatever that actually involves. I'm sure I have read it once. A completely random Invincible Iron Man teaming up with Black Widow. Now, that might be the first time I ever actually discovered who the Black Widow was. I'm not sure that she was a massively well-known character before the films turned her quite sort of mainstream. I don't know. But let's take those and sort those onto my piles. So what happened was, all these moved with me when I moved house a couple of years ago now, and of course, inevitably, they didn't really get. How do I have such random titles and issues? Or because there are sort of months, if not years, separating these pickups. That's why. Why do you think I'm sorting them out? I'm sorting my comics out. my other comics are If you have a look at the lives on this channel, you will find another video where, when I was packing up to move house, I did this exercise, but with all the comics that I had in boxes, and those were better organized because they were already sorted by DC and Marvel and everything else. So yes, you're right. It is a really random assortment because I tend to sort of buy what I like the look of, and don't regularly collect anymore. But at one point in time, I did regularly collect. So I've got a very big run of 2000 AD, which was my mainstay for quite a long time. But then I started discovering American comics and started buying more of those. But they were really hard to find around me locally at that point in time. So I only got spits and spats. And as a student, I didn't have much money to buy them with either. So, you know, it was just that sort of collection that's gradually built up over time, whenever I had the opportunity, rather than being massively coherent. But that's just the way it panned out for me, basically. And this is just I say this is not all of it, because I've got others in boxes, and I could probably, maybe I run out of space in the boxes for them. And so the ones I've got since then have just ended up floating, which is all of these that I'm looking at now to try and get a bit of a grip on it. So that's Death's Head 2, number 1. So that's where he's battling the original Death's Head and is about to clobber him, basically. I've got Death's Head 2 Gold, which looks very, very shiny. It's a nice cover. I'm assuming that's a variant of the one that I just showed you. That would be my guess, although it's dated differently. So I don't know whether that was actually a separate series, perhaps. Well, that does say Marvel Comics UK, whereas the other one is more of a US version. So I'm not quite sure what the crack is with that. Well, yeah, I mean, Simon Furman is a terrific writer, and he's been so consistent. I mean, he's been doing it it must be 40 years he's been writing Transformers and Death's Head and everything else, you know. And this is Death's Head 2 thinking about messing with his own timeline, basically, which he's trying to be persuaded not to, basically. That's number 3 there. Funny enough, I nearly picked up one of those last night, and I didn't, so I'm quite glad I didn't. But that's Civil War 2. So I'm not sure where that falls timeline-wise at all. I always used to think that basically number 1s would always be the most valuable issues. So I have loads of number 1s of various series, and you know, and that was it. So that's another Death's Head 2. So I definitely need to sort out these Death's Heads into some sort of order and see what I've actually got, because I might have quite a good run of them. And I remember this. This is quite a. Can't remember why I picked it up. It might have been York, strangely, but it's another Image imprint. But I remember the storyline being really interesting. But I only ever got this issue, number 1, of course. It was a little bit like Ready Player One, I think, in some respects. Oh, you got that? Which one? This one, Mark. I quite enjoyed it. I would have liked to have gotten a few more to see where it was going to end up going. It seemed to have quite an interesting premise. Might have to have a look for that one. I've never really, whenever I've gone into Cosmic, I've never really. Oh, Civil War 2, right? Okay, got it. So whenever I go into Cosmic, I never really go into the comic section because I always get distracted by all the toys. But I really should have a nose around the comic section at some point. Fantastic Four, when they all had shiny white suits and invited Spider-Man in. I've no idea what era these even are. But again, issue 1, so I picked it up. Civil War 2, not as good as 1. Okay. Sequels are often a disappointment, as we know. Image. Where's my Image pile? Right. That's good. I'm feeling quite productive doing this. Yes. Now this I picked up because J. Michael Straczynski had started writing Wonder Woman, so I've got like this one thing just because it's got a JMS doing it basically. I've met him. Have I mentioned that? I've met him. Yeah. So that was Wonder Woman then. She had a very different outfit then as well. I suspect he probably wanted them to tone it down, or that was just the general sort of feel at the time. So she's not quite as bare as she frequently is in that particular version of it. Where's my DC pile gone? I've got my 3 limited DC pile. There's a lot of Marvel, a lot of IDW around, not so much DC. Invincible Iron Man, Marvel .1. I don't know really what's going on there. Bit of a reboot. Looks like he's got looks slightly like the Extremis armor, actually. I could be completely wrong about that. Okay, Marvel. This was Nightwing time traveling, if I remember rightly. I was quite interested by the Nightwing comics because it's it's sort of him emerging from the shadow of Batman and sort of being trying to be his own hero, which I guess is a tough call when you're sort of you're sort of used to be Robin for the vast majority of your active career. Oh, look, it's more Transformers Armada. Why? Does this mean I've actually got a full run of these then? I don't know why, but I may have. Okay, marvellous, possibly. So once I've sorted these into piles of publishers, I'm going to have to resort them again after that. Uncanny X-Men Regenesis. So looks like another sort of relaunch type issue. So that's all good. I've got a free digital issue of this comic. I don't like reading digital comics. It's not really a thing I find normal somehow. It's not really my bag, but there you go. This is before Watchmen. So this is JMS again, but writing Watchmen sort of I think before the events of the original Watchmen comic and movie. And I think these series continued for quite a while, as I recall. So they did quite a bit with this. So that presumably, and that's DC. I'm sure Watchmen wasn't DC originally. But presumably they must have absorbed it at some point. Thor, God of Thunder, as we know, but that's the Thor version that I remember with the winged helmet. That's how I first saw him in comics. I think I've got a really old Thor comic that I had in the 80s somewhere, and his armor and stuff was really different back then. But I remember really being absorbed by it, the way it was written. Uncanny X-Force. So of course now and there you have Deadpool, but not in his normal colours. So it looks like at some point they decided they were going to do white and black as a thing. I don't know, but that's that. And now that was my backlog. That was actually my backlog. So I'm now into the ones that I picked up more recently. Read this today, Armor Wars, and this is the Ultimates universe. So it actually says Ultimate Armor Wars. I hadn't actually noticed that originally. It's so pale. Before Watchmen, they did a mini series, yes, for every character. It wasn't long running. There were a lot of them. That sounds about right. Yeah, I think they did. I remember there was a period where there was a lot of Watchmen activity going on, and that was obviously one of them. Because there were clear indications in the main Watchmen graphic novel, which I have got on my shelf somewhere, that they'd obviously all had a lot of backstory before that movie happened, because they were all quite sort of aged by that point, apart from the blue guy, of course. So that's technically not a standalone issue. I'll pop that down there. Graphic novel. Now I picked this up from an eBay auction a while ago, and I still haven't sat and reread it. But I just remember this being a really interesting story that appeared in the Judge Dredd Megazine in its first issues ever. I would imagine early 90s maybe. And it's the artwork is just really, really gorgeous. Really interesting story as well, but the art was just absolutely great. In fact, this is the art that it looks like Chopper did at that point in time. I wonder who the artist is, because writers John Wagner, Garth Ennis. That's interesting. Artist Colin McNeil, colors Alan Craddock and Chris Blythe. But just thought it is gorgeous. Really, really interesting run of Judge Dredd. That. So I was quite glad when I spotted that and picked that up, because it's definitely one I want to have a look at. It's always finding the time, isn't it? Now, this might be a bit surplus to requirements. I think I picked this up reasonably cheaply from an eBay auction as well, because I thought I was missing some of the issues. I think I've got a collected version that's only a bit of it, but I've also got quite a lot of separate issues. It may be that I've actually got it. You've never read Judge Dredd? Well, yes, that America does have a #1 on the side of it, so maybe they started from that point. Probably because those are the Megazine reprints. I mean, trying to read the entirety of Judge Dredd would just be now and impossible by this point, I think. So much Dredd, so many different flavors. I really like the more recent of the films, actually. I thought that was a really good interpretation of Dredd. I also like, what's his name? Who was the guy who was playing Dredd? He was in Chronicles of Riddick as well. He's in but The Boys now as well. His name won't come to me. You've read the Batman Dredd crossovers, yes. So have I. They were good crossovers, actually. Fair dues. Yes, thank you, Carl Urban. Good memory. Thank you. Better than mine. Excellent. Also got this, because I really enjoyed the movie, but I've never read the comics, and I still haven't read this one. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim. Definitely want to have a look at it, because I thought the film was hilarious. Really, really well done. I think it had some really good actors in it as well. Edgar Wright pulling his usual magic with stuff like this, but really, 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 really funny, enjoyable, slightly superhero-esque film, also featuring Captain America, of course, but he wasn't at the time, so that was clever. So yeah, that's goes on my completely random pickups list. Now, I don't know when I picked this one up, but this is Wildstorm, before DC seemed to have absorbed that imprint. This was Gen 13, and I recognized the title of the piece, and I'm not sure if this is a sort of a, let's see. So I'm not quite sure whether that was an original issue. I've got a graphic novel. That's right. I've got a graphic novel with some of their stories in. So I think I probably got this one just to sort of get an individual issue. Yes, and he was the Human Torch at the time. That's right. I mean, he was. You're right. That's right. Yes, it's one of the things you tend to blank these days, isn't it? Given how much Captain America he's been in. Because you were absolutely right. He was in the original Fantastic Four films, not the remake Fantastic Four films. It's so complicated these days. Nothing straightforward. So that's actually one of the few Wildstorm imprints I've actually got. Okay. I have no idea I had this. Guardians of the Galaxy and now Captain Marvel, apparently. Now that looks like quite a modern version of Marvel, doesn't it? I don't know. So I'm not even sure how old that one is. So again, I don't know if that's sort of pre or post the movies, but there's that. And then now this I picked up, and again, I'm not sure about quite how old this is, but in the 1980s Transformers comic run in the UK, they had a secondary comic strip called The Machine Man in it. And this is a more modern iteration of Machine Man. I don't know if it's the original kind of rebuilt, but I think he did get rebuilt at some point. I think he actually fought Iron Man at one point, but it was like a future Iron Man. So I don't know if this is that Machine Man or if it's something slightly different, but I think I've got this so recently I haven't actually had a chance to look at it yet. But he was quite an interesting character. So that's another Marvel. I've got X-Force and Cable 95 apparently. I have no idea where I've got this unless I just watched Deadpool 2 recently. That might explain that, I guess. Possibly just because it was a big. It looked like sort of quite an old school comic, so I might well have just got it on that basis. I have no idea. I'm not sure if that one came from America originally or not. And again, Deathlock is a character. Come on. I'm trying to remember when I first came across him. I think it was in a Spider-Man comic. Unless it was one of those sort of anthology ones where you got like sort of 4 or 5 different strips together in like was it not Deadline, but things like Overkill, that sort of edition, you know. But anyway, so yeah, I got that because I recognise the name basically. And of course, he did come in. He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while, wasn't he, as well? They used the Deathlock character in that series for a little while. So, and that's part of that Marvel Tech imprint, actually. So that was probably on the same shelf as Machine Man was. So I picked it up at the same time. And that's just another single issue of the Wildstorm universe. Now, I think the Grifter does come into the DC universe as well. I think Midnighter and Apollo definitely did. I don't know how many of them did overall. Because they did cross over with Captain Atom in their own imprint once. Yes, appreciate that. I'll hopefully catch up with you at some point tomorrow. Actually, I need to figure out when it actually starts for sort of punters to arrive and figure out my timings. But I'll see you. Have a good start to the day. Hope the trips goes well. So that was Wildcats again. That's Wildstorm again. Oh no, that's Image now. That's really confusing. That's Image. I thought it was Wildstorm. Okay, that's strange. That's Image. I'm going to have to look into the history of what happened with Wildstorm, I think, because it's puzzling. These I just got today in an antique store of all places, sort of antiques. People with cabinets. I just got it because it's Moon Knight, and of course Moon Knight's been reinvented quite recently. But the reason I got this one was because this is a properly old Marvel comic, and I immediately recognised it as such because UK 60p. And the great thing about these, I find, is that you get adverts like this in them. I really remember adverts like this. So this is that's an original Back to the Future 3 when it was current advert. That's what always makes me smile with these. And these were amongst the sort of the era of comics, American comics, that I first picked up ever. And they had all these fascinating adverts for things that I'd never heard of because, of course, we didn't get them in Britain. So it was always quite entertaining to pick these up because I could just sort of, see all these adverts for things I had no chance of ever getting, like Robotech. So it's just this little sort of time capsule thing, which I quite enjoy. And speak of the devil and he shall appear. So I picked this one up today as well. It's a random Captain Atom, but again, it's of that sort of era. Look at that, Destination Earthstar. Okay, no idea what that is. That was probably cutting edge graphics at the time, I imagine. What else have we got advertised in here? 10-gen arcade that hits home. Do we know what that is? TSR, Dungeons and Dragons, advertised on the back cover. DC Comics Deal of the Decade, apparently. What's up, Duck? Bugs Bunny. Marvelous. All sorts of good stuff. But this is the sort of page I really enjoyed because it's just lots of random little tiny adverts. Batman Batwing Water Blaster, Hercules-sized arms, an Atlas body. all this stuff's in there. Funny. Which is interesting. I mean, it does take me right back. I mean, this is this is probably like a 40-year-old comic, I imagine. Quite why it was on a random table in the store, I have no idea. Now, this is interesting. I recognise the name, but I don't think I have any graphic novels or anything like this, which is sort of specifically about it. Just noticed the cover's a bit imprinted, actually. But this is part of the Wildstorm universe and part of Stormwatch. And Monarchy were, I think, Stormwatch-esque. I can't remember if they came before or after. But it's that universe. So that's why I picked this one up, because I've never had an issue with the Monarchy. So it's just something to sort of slot in, actually. So that's DC. That one is Wildstorm, which I'm putting the Wildstorms down here. Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. Remember that? Random annual find today, which I probably slightly overpaid for, to be honest, but it just it tickled me because it's got all the names of the characters in it in the front there, which I don't think I ever actually really sort of properly picked up from the cartoon. Don't know if you remember the cartoon, but it had it had Flash Gordon, Ming the Merciless, the Phantom, Lothar, Mandrake, who's like a sort of budget Doctor Strange, Jeddah, but then they had sort of the younger versions of them as well. So they're kids, basically. And then you had Ming the Merciless as the main baddie, and Garax and Octon, whatever he was, and a snake and an ice robot and Men of Frost, apparently. So yeah, so that was quite a random pickup. I think there are toys of them as well. You'll know, Mark, won't you? If I'm pretty sure there were Defenders of the Earth toys, albeit quite a limited range. I think there were figures. But I have no idea if they're ever sort of worth anything. I haven't ever heard of them being described as particularly collectible, but that's the annual, which I don't think I particularly knew existed. But again, it's just one of those. That's why I like to wander into these. I mean, it's rather like where you've got a cabinet, Mark. It's that sort of place, but on a slightly smaller scale. It's in the Peace Hall. You might know it. This one I have read. It wasn't a Sandman tale that I was familiar with, but I did pick this up the other day. The Dream Hunter. It's a nice one, actually. Not written by Neil Gaiman, actually, but it's got a sort of afterwards by him, stuff like that. So it's typically sort of Sandman-esque, but it's very nicely done. Very nicely done. So that's graphic novel. And then the final thing I haven't looked at yet is this one. I literally forgot I had these. They're in a drawer. But again, it was neat. This was an eBay pickup, which was slightly random. But again, JMS still, writing comics quite, he does a lot of comics, basically. Not just his Babylon 5 run, lots of comics as well. And this is the sort of reinvention of Superman for Earth 1. So I say I've yet to look at that one, but I will do when I have half a second or more. And that is it. That was the pile I needed to get through to try and figure out what I have and haven't got. And to my satisfaction, I've only duplicated once, I think, out of all that, despite my recent pickups and not having checked before I bought more last night. So there'll be another batch coming in due course, because I was collecting at a stupid hour last night because I discovered I didn't have all the Babylon 5 graphic novels. I thought I did have, but it turned out I didn't have. But fortunately, there was all of one of them for sale on eBay in the UK, which saves me on postage. So I should surely have a full whack of those. But even then, I'm not sure if they actually cover all of the Babylon 5 comic issues between them. So I need to do a bit more research on that. But I'll add that to my Babblecom 5 channel in due course. So thank you for sticking with me. 1 hour later, I'm slightly more organised than I was. And I thought whilst I was doing it, I might as well do it live and allow you to see and hear me doing it. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to call it a night here. Do remember to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks for sticking with it, and have a good evening. Cheers.